Welcome friends, I'm Sarah with Cleopatra's Crochet, and in this video tutorial I'm going to be showing you how to make these cream pie coasters. By simply changing the color, you can make the key lime, the strawberry cream, the pumpkin, or the lemon meringue version. If you're interested, I also have a larger version of the pattern that can be used as a pot holder. So whether you're interested in making the larger versions of the pot holders, or you would like to work off of a PDF pattern instead of a video, I have that available in the link to my shop in the description. For this project, we're going to need a stitch marker, a tapestry needle, a 4.5mm crochet hook, and some sort of scissors. We also need yarn in 3 different colors, a brown for the crust, a small amount of white for the whipped cream detailing, and if you've never surface crocheted before, don't worry about that. It's easy and I'll show you how to do it in this video. And lastly, we need a filling color, and I'm going to use orange for the pumpkin pie. And today I'll be using Lion Brand's 24/7 cotton, which is a medium weight 4 mercerized cotton yarn. It's important to use only cotton yarn for making especially the pot holders because they have the ability to absorb heat and water. Synthetic fibers could potentially melt when exposed to extreme heat. Additionally, these pot holders are double layered thick to protect your hands. For the coasters, the cotton fiber is also able to absorb water, much better than any synthetic fiber would be able to do. Using the brown yarn first, we're going to begin with 6 single crochet in a magic ring. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. I like to put my crochet hook in the first stitch of the magic ring before I tighten down because it helps just make it easier to go into later on. When you're making the second half of this crochet project, so there's the back side, which we're going to make first, and then the filling side, which we'll make second. When you make the second half, you need to remember that for the magic ring, don't tighten it down as hard as you can because you need your crochet hook to be able to fit to the inside center of the magic ring to begin the whipped cream detail. For each row, I'm going to begin the row and show you the pattern, and then I'll cut and meet you at the end of the row so that this video is shorter. Here I finished round 1, and I'm going to slip stitch and chain 1. Now round 2 is 6 increase stitches, which will give you a total of 12 stitches at the end of your round. And I'm going to place my stitch marker so that I can keep track of where I'm at. That was my first increase. And now I'll meet you at the end of round 2 with 12 stitches. I'm at the end of round 2 with 12 stitches in the round. And we're going to slip stitch again and crochet 1 to close the round. Round 3 is 1 single crochet and then an increase repeated 6 times. And this will give us 18 stitches total. To end round 3, we need to slip stitch and chain 1 again. There's my slip stitch and my chain 1. To begin round 4, we need to do 2 single crochets. And I'm going to do 1 and replace my stitch marker. And now 2. And then we need to do an increase. And repeat that 5 more times. So 2 single crochets and an increase for a total of 24 stitches in the round. We're at the end of round 4. So we're going to once again remove the stitch marker, make a slip stitch and chain 1 and our first single crochet, so we can just put it right back on. The pattern for round 5 is 3 single crochet followed by an increase, repeated 6 times for a total of 30 stitches. So I've done my first single crochet. This is the second, the third, and an increase. Let's go ahead and repeat that until you get to the end of round 5. First and increase. That's the end of round 5. Make a slip stitch and a chain 1, and then the first single crochet to put our stitch marker back on. The pattern for round 6 is 2 single crochet, an increase, and then 2 more single crochet, repeated 6 times for a total of 36 stitches. So we've made our first single crochet. This is the second. Now make that increase, followed by 2 more single crochets, 1 and 2. And then go ahead and repeat that 5 more times until you get to the end of round 6. 1 and 2. Now a slip stitch and chain 1 to close round 6. I'm going to put that first single crochet back in so that I can put the stitch marker back in. Now the pattern for round 7 is 5 single crochet followed by an increase for a total of 42 stitches. I've done my first single crochet. This is the second, third, fourth, and fifth. Now an increase, first and second. Repeat that 5 more times, and I'll meet you at the end of round 7. So I've made it to the end of round 7, and you'll notice that I've changed colors. If this is your first time working through the pattern, you will still be working in the brown color. So continue following the pattern, you just won't change colors as I'm about to show you. And you'll end up with this back piece of the coaster. But I want to show you the color change. So the second time you've worked through the pattern, it's the exact same pattern, it's just that between round 7 and round 8, you need to change colors. And I'm going to show you that now. So I've trimmed my yarn, and I'm not going to make a slip knot or anything, I'm just going to start working with the brown yarn. The slip stitch and chain 1 to close round 7, I'm going to perform with the brown yarn. Pull these 2 ends tight, and then I'm going to pull it to the wrong side of the work and make my first single crochet using the brown so I can put my stitch marker back on. Now the pattern for round 8 is 6 single crochet and an increase, but we're once again going to shift the pattern and do 3 single crochet, an increase, and then 3 single crochet, repeated 6 times. I've done my first single crochet with the brown. I'm going to do the second and the third, then the increase, and then this is the first single crochet of the second time I'm repeating the 3. So 1, 2, and 3. Now continue doing 3 single crochet, increase, and 3 single crochet, and I'll meet you at the end of the round. We're at the end of round 8, and I'm going to remove my stitch marker, and I'm going to make a slip stitch, but I don't want you to make the chain 1 this round like we normally do to finish each round. So just the slip stitch, no chain 1. For round 9, we're going to make the scalloped edge. And the pattern for that is to skip a stitch, make 5 half double crochets in the same stitch, skip a stitch, make a slip stitch. And then you're going to repeat that 12 times so that you have 12 scallops all around the edge. So let's show you how to do that. I have a slip stitch. I'm going to skip this stitch right here, and I'm going to go into the next stitch. I'm going to make a half double crochet, and I'm going to make 4 more half double crochets in the same stitch. So it's an increase, it just has 5 half double crochets all in the same stitch. So that was the second one. 3, 4, and 5. Now you're going to skip the next stitch and slip stitch in the stitch after. So skip, slip stitch. Now you need to skip another stitch and go into the next stitch with 5 half double crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Skip a stitch, make a slip stitch in the next stitch. So go ahead and keep repeating that until you've finished the scallops, and I'll meet you at the end of round 9. I'm at the end of round 9, and I'm going to make a slip stitch into that same slip stitch that I began the round with. And now we're finished making this half, but we need to make the whipped cream detailing, and then once that's complete, we're going to take the 2 halves, face them together, and crochet the 2 halves together so we don't have to sew it. So in order to do that, I want to warn you, do not cut this brown yarn when you've made the second half with the filling color. So I'm going to put a stitch marker onto my loop so that it doesn't unravel, and I'm going to change to the white yarn. To surface crochet, you're essentially performing slip stitches. So we're going to take our crochet hook and we're going to go into the very center of round 1, which was that magic ring at the very beginning, which is here for me. So I'm going to push my crochet hook through to the wrong side of the work. And my white yarn is not tied in any knot. I'm just going to start working with it. And I'll go back and I'll make a knot later and I'll weave in my ends. But I'm going to wrap the yarn around my hook and I'm going to pull it through to the right side of my work. And now I'm going to go over 1 row to in between row 1 and row 2. So if you look closely, that's right here. So this is where I came out of, which was the very center of row 1. I'm going to go over 1 row. I'm going to push my crochet hook through. And now this is the tail of the white yarn, and I'm going to leave this to be tied into a knot and woven in later. And this is my working yarn. I'm going to wrap the yarn around the hook and pull up a loop. Now pull through the first loop that's already on your hook, and that's where the slip stitch comes in. Now we're going to rotate because we want to create a spiral. So go over one stitch, still in between round 1 and round 2. So for me, that's right here. And you're going to make another slip stitch. Yarn is wrapped around the hook. Yarn is wrapped around the hook, and I pull up a loop, and then I make a slip stitch. And I'm going to keep going around the circle between round 1 and 2 until I've made it back to the beginning. Yarn around the hook, pull up a loop, pull through the first loop. Go over a stitch, yarn around the hook, pull up a loop, and pull through the first stitch. Yarn around the hook, pull up a loop, and pull through the first stitch. One more. Pull up a loop, and pull through the first. So now I've made it back to the beginning, and I'm going to go over or out one round and start working between round 2 and round 3. So going out, and I'm going to make another round of surface crochet, just working one stitch at a time between round 2 and 3, wrapping the yarn around the hook, pulling up a loop, and pulling through again. And this is going to start forming that spiral for the whipped cream detail. And I'm going to keep going once again until I get back to the very beginning. And now I'm back to the beginning again. And I'm going to go out one more time to make one more loop around for this whipped cream detail. And now one more slip stitch. And we're back to the beginning of that spiral. So we can go ahead and trim our yarn. This is our working yarn, so I'm going to give myself a couple of inches and trim it. And put your hook back through the loop and just pull through. That'll form a knot. And I'm going to go ahead and bring that tail through to the wrong side. Now flip over your work, and all of these tails and loose ends tie into knots and weave in. I went ahead and wove in the ends of my yarn after tying them into knots. We're now ready to finish the coaster, so I've removed my stitch marker and I'm going to slide my crochet hook back on the work. You're going to face the wrong sides of each half together and line up the scallops. And now I'm going to rotate my work around because I want the ridge, this ridge here versus this half, to be on the top. And then I'm going to insert my hook into that first stitch. And I'm going to insert my hook into the first stitch on the second half. as well, wrap the yarn around the hook and make a single crochet. Now I'm going to keep working until I've made 5 total single crochets around the scallop, putting my hook through both halves of the coaster. And when I get to the end of the scallop, you're going to put your crochet hook through the slip stitch of each and form a slip stitch instead of a single crochet. So it will preserve the bump of each scallop. So let me show you that again. I'm going to do 1 for 1, a single crochet through each of the 5 stitches of the scallop, binding the 2 halves together, and when I get to the end, I'm going to work into that slip stitch and make a slip stitch to pull the 2 halves together. So now keep working around the coaster. If the 2 halves are slightly different sizes, that's totally okay. When you bind them together, it won't make a difference. I'm back at the beginning, and I'm going to make my final single crochet between the 2 halves, and then I'm just going to go back into the slip stitch area. It's kind of tight, but just force your hook through and make one final slip stitch. Then I will trim the yarn, leaving a tail that I can weave in. And here is our finished coaster. If you enjoyed this tutorial, don't forget to like and subscribe. The next tutorial that I have coming is for a lattice pie. And I have it in cherry, mixed berry, blueberry, and peach versions.